Sriram Garu, Dr. Rangarajan, Professor Hanumantrao Garu, Shri PPR Vittal, Sanjaya, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, Sanjaya, thank you very much for giving us a brilliant book on Narasimha Rao. You know, the day I received this book from your publisher, I've been reading, and a short book like this, I've taken really a long time to read, because every now and then, maybe every passage, every page, I got lost in thoughts, in memories. You know, I lost coherence actually. But first of all, as I said, this is a very, very extraordinarily brilliant book. I must say this. And it is a very, very difficult thing to execute. Writing on Narasimha Rao is not easy, because Narasimha Rao has spoken very little, he has written very little, and there are not many people who would talk about him. You found some, you're lucky, but not many people would talk about Narasimha Rao. And he is such a person who could keep quiet in about half a dozen languages. So to get material about Narasimha Rao, his thought process, what did he make of 1991 when he drove to Rashtrapati Bhavan, what was the scenario in the country, what was happening in North Block, what was his information, all this is very, very difficult to get. But that's the reason why I say this is a really brilliant book. In order to understand Narasimha Rao, one had to really, look at his past, look at his chief ministership, look at his political career, as just now Hanumantrao Garu had said, his grassroots politics, and the way he moved to Delhi, etc., etc. Narasimha Rao, when he went to Delhi, he was an absolutely unknown quantity. And throughout his prime ministership too, he was an unknown quantity. Even today, in large parts of the country, he still remains an unknown quantity. Especially Delhi, the so-called Lutyens Delhi, I remember when I told somebody that I was from Andhra Pradesh, they would ask me, are you a Rao or a Reddy? There are only two kinds of human beings in Andhra Pradesh. One is a Rao and the other one is a Reddy. That was the kind of knowledge that the Lutyens Delhi had about Andhra Pradesh and Telugus. But you see, Delhi did not know Narasimha Rao, but Narasimha Rao knew Delhi. He knew every nook and corner, the labyrinth. I'm talking about the political thing, not the streets, but he knew. And he knew India. And he knew the political structure. This is what he writes in the Insider. I don't know how many of you have read his Insider. One must read Insider in order to understand not only Narasimha Rao, but also to understand India and the Indian political milieu. He says, this is semi-autobiographical work of Narasimha Rao. He says, run, Anandji, run for your life. No one gives a damn for your genius. Escape, dreamer. Save your dreams and your dreaming before they get you condemned, before they destroy the real you and set the hounds of suborned public opinion against you, so that you may never ever rise again. This is Narasimha Rao, who anticipated what would happen to him even after he presided over the government of India for 5 full years. This is prophetic. That's because this man understood what the Indian political system was. To me, Narasimha Rao comes across more as a subversive. He subverted everything that he touched. But he is a quiet subversive. He subverted everything. He subverted the economy. He subverted the socialistic pattern of society. He subverted the commanding heights of the economy. He subverted the high command of the Congress party. He subverted the feudalism of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. He subverted the power of the land-holding classes in this state. He subverted everything. He subverted the age-old Nehruvian foreign policy. He subverted everything. And most people think that he is an armchair intellectual, political thinker. But I must tell you, this escapes a lot of people's attention. He, except in 1991, he contested every election that was held in free, independent India. He's mass leader par excellence. He contested every election. He must have lost 1 or 2. But he contested every single election. And he had a very, very insightful understanding of the market. I'll tell you how. Read his Insider. He describes very elaborately how a tea company introduced tea in the market. They went from house to house, distributed tea packets free of cost. Those days, during the Nizam, and people got used to, free of cost, they started having tea a day, 2, a week, a fortnight, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. After that, they started collecting money, and people could not resist. They wanted to have tea because they got used to it. And he understands how markets work, how multinational corporations work, his complete understanding. I have known him since my childhood. Therefore, this is not just talking about Sanjaya Baru's 1991, but I am also talking mostly, I think, more about Sri Narasimha Rao. I have known him from such an age that, I have known him, but I didn't understand what he was. It's much, much later that I could really, understand what Narasimha Rao meant and what Narasimha Rao meant for India. Much, much later. He became Prime Minister in 1991. I returned to India in 1991. And when we didn't know who was going to be the Prime Minister. So just 2 or 3 days before he was to swear in, I called him up from Madras. I was there in Madras that time. And there are no WhatsApps and things like that. So we don't know. I mean, things used to travel very, very slow. So we got to know somehow that, there was an outside chance of Narasimha Rao becoming the Prime Minister. But who would imagine that Narasimha Rao would become the Prime Minister? So I placed a call, spoke to him and said, this is what people are talking about. Is it true? Shall I come over? He said, we don't know. Then you know what he said? Endukanta manchidi ra repu. That's what he said. Then I went. Parakala Prabhakar, we were all there. But I was a little late. I couldn't go to the Rashtrapati Bhavan for the swearing-in ceremony. So I waited at home. When he returned from being sworn in as the Prime Minister, I was the one who stood there and organized, water with kunkuma so that, his drishti was taken. Our association, my association with him, was since my childhood, as I told you. Because my father was his follower. My father thought that he was a follower of Narasimha Rao, but Narasimha Rao thought my father was his colleague. See him. Look at him. How that happened. That should also be told, if I may, can say that. When the talks were going on to draft a gentleman's agreement in 1956, when Telangana state and Andhra state were to become Andhra Pradesh, Burgal Ramakrishna Rao Garu was the Chief Minister of Hyderabad state. He was part of the gentleman. And mind you, it was a gentleman's agreement. No lady was there in it. And Allur Sachinarayan Raju was the Andhra Pradesh Congress Committee chairman. And Narasimha Rao Garu came to those meetings along with Burgal Ramakrishna Rao Garu. And my father came along with Allur Sachinarayan Raju Garu to the gentleman's agreement. And the gentleman went in. And these people who accompanied them, they used to sit outside and chat. That's how their friendship took shape and grew. And since then, we were all almost a part of the family. I would say just a couple of things more before I conclude. Most of the people for a long time had thought that Narasimha Rao was a very indecisive person. Even today, people joke about it. In fact, Sanjay also mentions that not taking a decision is also a decision. I don't know whether he really said it or not, but it has become a fashion to say that. But you see, Narasimha Rao was operating under a very peculiar political system and a very peculiar kind of a political leadership of a political party. We say, our Shastras say, when it describes a sandalwood tree, Mulam Bhujangaihi, Shikharam Vihangaihi, Shakaha Plavangaihi, Kusumani Brahmarai. At the base, you have snakes. At the top, eating the shoots and the leaves, you have the birds, vihanga. Moolam, bhujangai. Shikharam, vihangai. Shakha, plavangai, monkeys. On the branches you have a lot of monkeys. And kusumani, you have bees, honeybees. You have monkeys, you have snakes, you have birds, you have bees. Everything is there in a political party, especially the political party that he was there. So if you have to subvert Nehruvian so-called commanding heights of economy, the Tirupati session, the man had to stand up and say, look, this is Nehruvianism. I am bringing in socialism. That's how he did it. And then, if you have to bring in the kind of power structure within the party and change the entire thing, he has to do it in such a way that it is palatable to that particular political party. And therefore you see, which probably for some good reason Sanjaya had omitted, look at his cabinet, except a couple of people whom absolutely had no other option but to take them. You know, his cabinet was, I think everybody who is not under 60. I think everybody is 60 and above. Everybody, except the junior ministers are all there. You have Chidambarams, you have Kumaramangalams, you have all these Kamal Naths and all that. They're all junior ministers. So the cabinet ministers are all 60 and above, and mostly those who have already been chief ministers or ministers earlier, etc., etc. Now, he is decisive, as I said. He is not indecisive. He is decisive because he is perhaps the first ever non-Gandhi Nehru Prime Minister who, along with him, had sworn in an entire cabinet. Entire cabinet. It's not that, he went in with another 6 or 7 or alone and then after thought about it and consulted people and brought people. No. At one go, he had the entire cabinet in place. That's one. And secondly, I think Sanjay mentions very, very, very forcefully the way he asserted who is the boss. When Madhav tried to play, he told him who is the boss. And when Chidambaram tried to be very smart, as Sanjay says, he's very smart. Narasimha Rao told him who is smart. And what Sanjay omitted, probably by oversight, is when Rangarajan Kumaramangalam tried to play smart. So Ranga and myself were very good friends. In fact, in very informal way, Narasimha Rao Garu asked me, why don't you go and talk to Ranga? So I went and spoke to Ranga. You know what Ranga told me? Yeah, I'm a Kumaramangalam, he said. He said, he's a Kumaramangalam. Then I didn't want to really say that, this is what Ranga had said. But then I took Ranga along with me to the Prime Minister, and he was sitting. He used to sit very calm. He used to sit very calm. And then Ranga entered the room. Then, he looked up and said, "Kahan hai chitti? Where is your letter?" That's it. It's over. The story is over. Ranga thought, Ranga, please come, sit down. What happened? Why did you talk like this? Etc. etc. That's what probably he expected Narasimha Rao to ask him. He said nothing. He just entered the room and Narasimha Rao looked at him and said, "Kahan hai chitti? Where is your letter?" And this man just rushes out, sits in Khandekar's room, types a letter and brings it. That's it. Over. His resignation is accepted. But Sanjay, one more thing. Before all this, it was our friend Jairam who was sacked. No, but today is big. Prasad garu unnaru ikkada. Jairam was put in place, he said. And Ramu and everybody tried to, persuade Narasimha Rao garu, no, may not be such a mistake and all that. No. So therefore, there used to be a joke when he was Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister that, he goes to Delhi so often and things like that. For everything. Ranga Rao garu remained unmarried because, he didn't get a clearance from the High Command to get him married. So all sorts of jokes used to go on. But people missed that he was operating in a system. But when he presided over the system, he told everybody in no uncertain terms who was the boss. He sacked people, he took decisions, he took ministers, and it's not an ordinary thing to bring in Dr. Manmohan Singh as finance minister. It's not a small thing. Completely, who could really think during those days that you could have a professional economist to come and become a finance minister? You could have an advisor, you could be in the finance ministry, etc., but not as a finance minister. And steadfastly, he stood by him. He protected him. That is the kind of decisive role that Narasimha Rao had played. Now, it's very unfortunate that, the kind of paradigm shift that has happened in Indian political system as well as the economic system. I come from a school which is a political economy school. We are not pure economists nor the pure political scientists, but we are political economists. I am from the London School of Economics. I left London School of Economics in 1991. I.G. Patel, who was to become finance minister, probably Sanjay says twice he refused to become finance minister. He left London School of Economics in 1990 as our director. So when we look at the kind of intricate play that political and economic forces had in India from 1991 to 1996. But you see, somehow, I was very active in constituency politics those days. We could not sell what Narasimha Rao had done to the electorate. We could not get an endorsement. Such momentous decisions were taken, such huge transformation has taken place, but we could not go to the people and say, look, this is the kind of transformation that has been brought about by PV Narasimha Rao and the government of India those days. We could not. Because the party did not cooperate, the leaders did not cooperate, they didn't understand. And Narasimha Rao was also partly probably responsible that, he was not bold enough to stand up and say, look, this is what I have done. He didn't. He was trying to be namby-pamby. It's this, it is that, it is still Nehruvian, it is still that, it is socialist, it is Indira Gandhi, Rajivji, had he lived, he would have done this, and Rajivji had, it was his manifesto that I'm implementing, that kind of a thing. Probably he had his own reasons. It's very easy for us to sit here and, look back and judge and pass comments, etc. But that was the kind of thing. And 1996, we could not. We were not able to convince. Otherwise, we could have had a resounding victory. Narasimha Rao could have been the Prime Minister for the next 2 terms at least. That was the kind of major transformation that he had brought in. And he was not a marketeer. And today you can see the kind of marketing that is going on. And it's astonishing. Somebody who does nothing.
Facebook, 5,000 crores.
I'm sorry? Yeah, Facebook, somebody said. Facebook.
5,000 crores.
Sorry?
5,000 crores.
Yeah. That kind of a marketing, that kind of a, 5-cam setup and, that kind of a thing, Narasimha Rao he did not have. I would end by narrating a small anecdote. Sri Ranga, if you permit me. Um, whenever I went to Delhi, I did not come back from Delhi without meeting him, as long as he was alive. Every time I went to him. One day, I was to meet him at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I went to some friend for lunch. So after lunch, we were just chatting. And then I was in a hurry. I wanted to go because I want to, be on time for my appointment with Narasimha Rao. So when I was getting up, this man said, "Why are you in a hurry?" The one who hosted me for lunch. I said, "I'm going to Narasimha Rao. It's at 3 o'clock. I have to go to Motilal Nehru Marg." Then he said, "All of you understand Telugu?" Most of you. You don't? Okay. I'll translate that. నేను కూడా వస్తానండి. I'll also come. I've never seen him. నేను దగ్గర నుంచి చూడలేదు ఇప్పుడు. మా తాతయ్య గారికి బాగా తెలుసండి. My grandfather knew him well. But my grandfather died about 35 years ago. And he used to talk about it. So I want to come and meet him. I said, fine. So I took him. Both of us entered the room. He was sitting. I think he just got up from his siesta. Then I said, this is so-and-so. He wanted to meet you. It seems his grandfather knew you very well. These are the just 3 sentences that I spoke. Narasimha Rao looked at that person and said, ఎవరు అబ్బాయి అమ్మా, ఎక్కడి నుంచి వచ్చావు నువ్వు? వేర్ ఆర్ యూ ఫ్రమ్? హీ సెడ్, నేనండి పలానావారి మా ఊరు పలానా ఊరండి. మా తాతయ్య గారు మీకు తెలుసట, కానీ చాలా లేదని నేను పోయి. ఎవరు మీ తాతయ్య గారు అంటే? హూజ్ యువర్ గ్రాండ్ ఫాదర్? హీ సెడ్ సమ్డే. ఓ, డాక్టర్ గారు అబ్బాయివా? ఫస్ట్ 35 years ago that man died. And he said, అవునండి, డాక్టర్ గారికి 3 అమ్మాయిలు 4 అబ్బాయిలు కదా, నువ్వు అమ్మాయి కొడుకు అబ్బాయి కొడుకు? డాక్టర్ గారు had 4 sons and 3 daughters. You are daughter's son or sons? నేను అమ్మాయి గారు అబ్బాయి. రెండో అమ్మాయి కొడుకు, మొదటి అమ్మాయి కొడుకు? 3 అమ్మాయిలు. ఈయన పోయి 35 సంవత్సరాలు అయిందండి. ఆ 35 సంవత్సరాల్లో పివి నరసింహ రావు బికమ్ ఎమ్మెల్యే, దెన్ మినిస్టర్, ఎండోమెంట్స్, ఎడ్యుకేషన్, ఎట్సెట్రా, and then became chief minister. After chief minister, he was in political wilderness for some time, and after that he went to Delhi. He was general secretary of the AICC, and after that something else, and then became external affairs minister, Mrs. Gandhi, etc., became prime minister, and did tremendous things for India, and then over, and he was leading a retired life. And then comes this man and says, ఆ పేరు చెప్పగా నువ్వు డాక్టర్ గారు అబ్బాయివా? నేను ఆయనకి 4 కొడుకులు, 3 పిల్లలు ఉన్న 3 బిడ్డలు కదా, వాళ్ళు అమ్మాయి కొడుకు అబ్బాయి కొడుకు, అమ్మాయి కొడుకు ఏ అమ్మాయి కొడుకు? 3 అమ్మాయిలు కదా, మధ్యలో అమ్మాయి అంటే నువ్వు హుజురాబాద్లో ఇచ్చారు ఆ అమ్మాయి కొడుకు. I told you this not to say that this man had tremendous memory. No. You know why I told you this? I told you this because this man related to people. The human lesson. I don't know if any one of you, how many of you remember, Sanjay, do you remember in every English newspaper those days, the headlines of Narasimha Rao's speeches used to be reforms with a human face. This is what it used to be. Prasad garu gurtunda meeku? He used to say reform, yes, but with a human face. This is Narasimha Rao as a human being. He looked at people. He knew the families. peace. He knew how many brothers, how many sisters, how many daughters, how many sons, and who, where they are married, what it was. This is the one, which lay at the base of Narasimha Rao's political economic thinking. And this is the one which led to 1991, which is the one which had transformed India. That is why today we are living in a modern India. That is why we are living in a globalized India. That is why we are living today in an India where people can say that, look, we are going in for double-digit growth. We are going in to become an economic superpower, a political superpower. This century is going to be India's century. That was because what Narasimha Rao had done in 1991. Thank you.